Did you know that Google personalizes many searches by city and Also Asked is the only tool to access live People Also Asked data at city level? Try for free at alsoasked.com.
I was going to say that SEO with Fat Joe is as peaceful as this, but then the birds are all having fights.
Tired of SEO guesswork? Quadra's AI agent goes deeper to uncover high-impact optimizations and completes hours of SEO in minutes. Get started now.
Over 10 years ago, I was successful founder and CEO of an international price comparison company. But what I didn't know back then is the success wouldn't last. We had 7-digit monthly ad spends with Google, 8-digit revenues, and every year we sent over 100 million paid leads to thousands of online shops around the world. We were best friends with Google until Google one day decided that they want to enter e-commerce themselves. When Google decided that they want to basically dominate the Google, let's say, the price comparison sector with its own price comparison, Google Shopping, deliberately targeting existing providers and pushing them out of the market. Like many others, I had to close down my company overnight, lay off all employees, liquidate the business. Major providers basically shrunk significantly back then, and we price comparison companies had no other choice but to sue Google for abusing its dominant marketing position, positioning its own product, Google Shopping, and pushing everybody else out. I was personally involved in the lawsuits against Google that ultimately led to the Google CSS program, where Google had to pay a couple of billion euros. And today, over 10 years later, I have a new company called AdStrong, and now we help others get the maximum out of the Google CSS program I fought so hard for. And we're pretty successful with it. Today, over 20% of all the Google CSS accounts in the world are managed by us. Hi. Hi, I'm Ingmar, serial entrepreneur, investor, business angel, speaker, and award judge. And in today's session, I will talk about how you can leverage the Google CSS program to dominate your niche on Google Shopping. And that's relevant for anyone working in Google in e-commerce, no matter whether you're an agency, shop, or a SaaS provider. So let's dive into the content, and let's start with what the Google CSS program is, just to make sure that everybody can follow along. Basically, as I said before, the Google CSS program is the result of a lawsuit against Google and should ensure fair competition in the price comparison sector. CSS stands for Comparison Shopping Services. That's a special status for Google certified price comparison companies that enjoy lots of privileges, which I will talk about later. Important to know is that anybody who's running shopping ads in Europe, including the UK and Switzerland, is using a CSS. Either you've picked one or you're using the default provider, Google Shopping Europe. Google Shopping Europe is a sister company of the Google Search company. And which CSS somebody's using is clearly visible in the Buy CSS link at the bottom of the shopping ads. Now, obviously, every CSS provider wants to earn money. If you've picked the CSS yourself, you're paying a transparent monthly or annual fee. But if you haven't picked somebody and you're going with the default provider, Google Shopping Europe, you're paying a hidden fee that's much higher because Google Shopping Europe keeps a percentage of all the CPCs of all advertisers who use it. That means that a percentage of your ad budget goes straight to the pocket of Google Shopping Europe, doesn't go to Google Search, and is not used for the auction for the ad placements, right? So when the CSS program was launched, this percentage was 20%. Nowadays, nobody knows exactly how much it is, but it's most likely a double-digit percentage that's not higher than 20%. So pretty expensive if you ask me. And what I've just told you roughly sums up the knowledge of over 90% of online marketers about this topic. But if you see the CSS program only in terms of the CPC benefit, you're missing out on what's happening right now. Because just like with an iceberg, big benefits of the CSS program are hidden below the surface. I'm talking about the CSS provider benefits that are easily overlooked. Because in 2025, it's not just about the CPC boost. It's about how you can use your own CSS to dominate your niche on Google Shopping. And it might not have made sense to think about the CSS provider benefits because it's complex to become a CSS provider, but times have changed. Nowadays, everybody can become a CSS provider. So I will now show you different CSS setups, especially from a CSS provider perspective, because that is where you can get a competitive edge in 2025. So let's take a look at the CSS evolution from zero CSS to hero CSS. First station, no CSS. No CSS means you're using the default provider Google Shopping Europe, who demonstrably keeps part of all the CPCs of all the advertisers who do this. So if you like giving away money, feeling generous, then that's the right option for you. for everybody else, this is not a choice anymore, because you're playing with the handicap, because you're losing part of your ad budget, and that just makes it hard to compete in a performance channel. So please use the CSS if you take shopping ads seriously. There are many great providers such as AdStrong. You will find one, and that is already the next stage here, third-party conventional CSS. That is what most advertisers do, right? Shopping ads by AdStrong, by CSS Hero, you name it. Congratulations. You're no longer wasting away part of your ad spend to Google Shopping Europe. Welcome to performance marketing. This was a great way to get a competitive edge in the shopping ads landscape via better CPCs in the first years of the CSS program. But nowadays, so many people or advertisers are using a CSS that you don't get a competitive advantage because everybody gets the same relative CPC boost that you do get too. So today it's not enough anymore. You have to do something else if you want to be at the forefront. And that's at the next stage of the agency CSS and then the keyword CSS. Here, the important change happens from an external CSS, where the benefits are limited on the CPC boost, to your own CSS, where you unlock the CSS provider benefits. And to understand the CSS provider benefits, we have to look at the shopping ad more closely and dissect it. Obviously, shopping ad primarily features the product with the image, the title, and the price. And secondarily, it features the CSS provider with the Google blue highlighted link at the bottom of the ad that's really clearly visible. Not the shop. The shop is only visible in the middle of the ad in a gray font, almost goes unnoticed. What people see is this product from this CSS. What everybody knows is, if I click on the ad, I'm taken to the shop, and the shop pays a CPC. But if I'm clicking on the Buy CSS link, that's a free click that Google gives to the CSS providers, and this click leads to the CSS provider's page. So to sum things up, the CSS provider gets more visibility in the shopping ad than the shop. And the CSS provider gets free traffic from the ad that the shop is running. Pretty cheeky if you consider that the CSS provider doesn't have to do anything. And how does it look like in practice? Here we have a Google search for aspirin. You see the shopping ads, and here's the shopping ad by the shop Disapo, which is run by a major CSS provider. Now, if I click on the pixelated Buy CSS link, I'm taken to the CSS result page where you see different offers of aspirin. But there's not a single offer of the shop Disapo here. There's a shop filter, and Disapo isn't even listed. And that is the norm. The original advertiser's products are almost never or only barely visible on the CSS landing page that is reached by clicking on the Buy CSS link. And that is because all major CSS providers sell the free traffic they get from Google via ads and sponsored listings, not by giving it away for free. And I invite everybody here to try it out for your own ads. Make searches, don't make like brand searches, but make like short-haired keyword or category searches. Click on the Buy CSS link in your ads, and unless you serve a very exotic niche or are the only one selling a product, your products will barely be visible. Mostly your competitors will be visible. So for most advertisers like Disapo, the situation looks like this. They pay for the ads, they work for the ads, then they put a foreign brand, the CSS provider, more visible in the ads than their own shop, and then they give away part of the traffic to the competition. I hope it's pretty clear for everybody that this can be the best practice in performance marketing. So what is the best practice? Here we have a search for Puma and B. We have different ads, and one is from Kicks, one by one of our customers who has an agency CSS. And now if I click on the Buy Touchpoint link, I'm taken to the Touchpoint branded CSS agency page. By the way, Touchpoint doesn't have to do anything for it. It's completely run and managed by AdStrong and localized for all European countries. And here, only products by Touchpoint's customers, in this case, Kicks, are shown. And the fact that only products by Kicks are shown is due to a special feature that only we have. We call it the free clicks booster, and that ensures that only our customers' products show up on the CSS landing pages. So if you're an agency, your client's products; if you're a shop, your products directly, right? So that's a great way to use this free traffic that the CSS provider gets and not waste it to the competition. And now that we've understand how the CSS provider is integrated in shopping ads, we can take a look at the next setup, agency CSS. So agency CSS means the agency CSS provider, they can put their own brand or something they like in the CSS link, and they have their own CSS site, price comparison site, preferably on the subdomain. So obviously, first advantage is branding. Depending on the ad spend, the agency gets millions to billions of free brand impressions through a prominent placement of the CSS link in the shopping ads, without any extra work, without any extra cost. Basically, shopping ads with their own CSS transform into digital real estate that generates passive brand income for you. And for agencies, this is almost always the most effective way to reach massive visibility and gain reach. In addition, shopping ads where the CSS status is generally perceived as an expert status when it comes to shopping ads, and all your ads of your clients act as indirect testimonials. And this is clearly visible to everybody. So the agency gains prestige, can level up and grow. For anybody who wants to dig deeper into this, take a look at the testimonial section on our website, where agencies really report about more inbound leads, better conversion rates in the sales department, and so on. And the second big benefit obviously is that the CSS provider gets all the free traffic that's generated by the CSS link. And depending on the ad spend, this can be quite a lot. And without your own CSS, you not only waste it, no, you go straight to the competition. We've measured that up to 3% of the clicks in Google Shopping ads go on the buy CSS link. Now, 3% might not sound like a lot, but compared to the big ad spends of agencies and shops, we are easily talking about 5 to 6 digits, sometimes even 7-digit pound values annually that you're just wasting away and that you could just get for free. So this is definitely interesting. And for agencies who don't directly benefit from the free traffic, the free clicks booster, the feature that makes sure that only the agency's clients are visible on the CSS landing pages, is a really great USP of the CSS that makes their CSS unique and therefore gives them a tool that they can offer to their clients, which offers extra service, extra value, and a nice lock-in. So these are 2 benefits that I've talked about that you can easily see for yourself if you just click around on the shopping ads, right? You see the branding, you can see the free traffic. But in addition, as a CSS provider, you're also empowered by Google. And this CSS status empowerment includes additional support and also access to exclusive Google support resources that often provide you with extra tools to get an edge in Google Shopping, I would say. And as an agency, if you will reach Google CSS partner status or even Google CSS premium partner status, you get additional direct account management, you get technical support, you get extra certifications, you get badges, you're listed in the CSS partner directory. Let's say all tools that help the agency to get trust, to get visibility, and to generate inbound leads. And if you ask me, this Google CSS status empowerment serves one primary goal, and that is improve the performance of the campaigns. That can only happen if you put the status empowerment into the hands of somebody who can have an impact on the ads. That is, the agency or the shop. But if you use an external CSS provider, he can't and he won't use the CSS status empowerment to improve your ads. This is just casting pearls before swine. So, to sum things up, agency CSS is far better than a conventional CSS, not only for the agency, but also for the agency customers. The agency gets a strategic growth asset that makes them a one-stop shop for the customers with an affordable first-catch product with lock-in and a nice Google status empowerment that they can use to better serve their clients. And the agency customer not only gets the conventional CSS benefit with the CPC boost, but they also get the free traffic that the ads generate, and they get an agency that is further empowered by Google to better serve them. So for whom is this the best setup? For agencies and the most agency customers. Brings us to the last setup, the keyword CSS. Keyword CSS is a premier class. That's the best setup for large online shops. It's very similar to the agency CSS with some differences that I will highlight. And with keyword CSS, I mean that the shop is turned a CSS provider. He can put his own keyword in the CSS ad, and he has his own CSS price comparison site. And the main difference between the agency CSS and the keyword CSS comes from the fact that contrary to agency brands, product and shop brands are not allowed as CSS names anymore, except if they are generic keywords. So for instance, Cannondale is not allowed as a CSS name. Bike is allowed as CSS name, even if the shop that's behind the CSS is bike.com. And this way we have renamed the Converse CSS to the sneakers CSS, and it performed better. Let me repeat. The sneakers keyword CSS performs better than the Converse CSS. How can this be? Basically, ads are all about relevance. The more relevant an ad, the higher the click rate. The higher the click rate, the better the quality score. The better the quality score, the lower the CPCs I need to pay. The CSS link is highly visible in ads, far more visible than the shop name, as we've seen. And in most cases, this valuable ad space is wasted with a CSS name that is completely irrelevant, has nothing to do with the search intent, and thereby it's just a waste. And a keyword CSS changes this. We take a relevant keyword, use this as a CSS name, and therefore we use this clearly visible ad space to increase the relevance and therefore the performance of the ad. So here's an example. We have an online store for beds and mattresses that has a great configurator. By putting this information in the clearly visible CSS link, we immediately showcase the USP and increase the relevance and the performance of the ads. Let me give you some more examples on how shops use their own CSS, their own keyword CSS to increase the relevance. So what most people or what most shops do is they category keywords. They use a category keyword to really increase their standing in the category, to become synonymous with the category name, to increase the relevance of the ads, and to show everybody that this ad is from a specialized retailer. Second is for market positioning. One of our customers, Manico, sells products that are often mistaken as nail wraps. But for them, it's really important to position themselves in the segment of UV gel strips. And having their own keyword CSS allows them to do this. Each ad impression strengthens their market positioning. And then you can use it to showcase your USP, just as I've shown with Mozartbet, who uses configurator, which is the USP directly as a keyword CSS name, and therefore increase the relevance of the ads and makes it stick out. Then you can communicate other factors such as quality. We have one shop, it's an Italian fashion label called Luca Faloni, and they use Italian artisans. We immediately show everybody the quality and the heritage of their products and make their ads stick out compared to competition. And last but not least, full range retailers like Samsung can go with e-commerce, conversion, clicky keywords like deal or sale to just increase the general clickiness and performance of the ad. Obviously, you can also go with several keywords at once. We have a German online shop for glasses who uses sunglasses and glasses for the English-speaking market, and then the German translations, Brillen and Sonnenbrillen, for the German market. And obviously, we don't have the performance data of our customers, but we have measured a little bit of impact here and there. So 3 representative case studies. First, JD. Here we've switched Merchant Center from a conventional third-party CSS to their own keyword CSS, and there were no significant changes made in the campaigns, and the CTR went up by 17%, which is representative. Most clients report between 15 to 20% CTR increase. Then we have Intersport, which is really interesting because they had a brand CSS before, which already increased the CTR. We've done a case study with them. And then by changing it to the keyword CSS, it even further increased the CTR to up to a 27% lift. And then Redcare, similar to Intersport, they also had a keyword brand CSS before. We didn't do a case study. We don't know how big the CTR uplift was, but the uplift of the keyword CSS was 11%, which clearly shows that the keyword CSS is a stronger performing setup than the brand CSS. And obviously then they get the free traffic, which before they lost to the competition. So to sum things up, the keyword CSS is the best performing setup for large online shops because compared to the agency CSS, you lose the branding, but you gain the relevancy. And for agencies who have large clients, they can consider whether they want to keep these large clients in their agency CSS to strengthen the agency brand, or whether they want to put them in their own keyword CSS to further increase the relevance of the ads. And that will have been sometimes. Okay, so that was roughly evolution from zero CSS to hero CSS with the most important CSS setups for whom what setup is nice. And I hope that I was able to show you why a third-party CSS is definitely better than no CSS. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't cut it in 2025 anymore. And how you can dominate your niche with your own CSS. Now you might have said, hey, awesome. How do I get my own CSS? Basically, you have to become a Google CSS provider. And there are 2 ways. First way is do it yourself. You run a Google compliant price comparison company, portal, where you list at least 50 merchants for each country where you want to be active with Google Shopping ads. Obviously, it has to include like the most common sorting and filtering mechanism, have a decent search algorithm, and so on. And once you've done this, you can go through the CSS application, and if everything goes good, you award a CSS status and get all the benefits except for the free clicks booster. This you won't get, but the other stuff you get. It's important then to really dig into the configuration and settings of the CSS to make sure that you don't lose out on reach, because this can happen, and that you get maximum out of the CSS program. If you do all this effort, you obviously want to have like the maximum benefit that you can get. And you should always stay up to date because Google regularly changes the requirements of the CSS program, and you don't want to risk a suspension due to a Google policy violation. Second option is get an ad-strong CSS. As I've said before, we are the most innovative and professional provider in the market, and we run over 20% of all the CSS in accounts in the world. So what makes us special? And I will give you the spoilers, plug and play, right? You don't have to do anything. We take care of everything. We run a Google compliant price comparison portal in your design, on your domain, with free clicks booster, always up to date. Nothing for you to do. It's also completely secure. We are not only 100% Google policy compliant, but there are also 0 downtimes or interruptions in your existing setup, in your feeds accounts. Nothing you have to consider or worry about. So that brings me to the end of my talk on how you can dominate your niche on Google Shopping with your own CSS. And just settle for the CPC boost and think how high it is. Make use of all the CSS benefits. And if you take away 3 things from my talk, let them be these. First, if you think about or you hear about the CSS program, don't just think about this 20% CPC boost and ask if it's 20% or 15%. But second, see the CSS really as a strategic asset that can really leverage your success in Google Shopping far beyond this CPC boost. And third, thanks to providers such as AdStrong, nowadays everybody can become a CSS provider without lifting a finger, without hiring personnel or acquiring extra IT knowledge. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. I hope you learned something. I hope you've taken something away that will help you with your own challenges in the future. I'm very happy to get questions from you. So if you have any questions, just reach out, email, LinkedIn, contact form on the website. Me and my team will be happy to sit down, take a look at your situation, answer your questions. And obviously, I will be also very happy to see any one of you dominate your niche on Google Shopping with your own CSS in the future. Thank you.